Hello there and welcome to our nightly news program coming to you live on All 24 News from Algiers. Next up are the headlines. The Algerian president reaffirms the state's determination to preserve the dignity of citizens and affirms his commitment to improving the conditions of workers and his keenness to provide decent and motivating conditions that protect their professional future. Also coming up, mass marches and widespread popular protests in several Moroccan cities to denounce the deteriorating social conditions and reject the expansion of political repression and the restriction of trade union freedoms. After announcing the extension of the ceasefire for another 3 days, the UN envoy to Sudan announces the agreement of the two parties to start talks to reach a permanent ceasefire, while doctors and pharmacists warn that the drug stock will run out within weeks. Also ahead. And on International Labour Day, demands for improving social conditions invade several capitals of the world. Meanwhile, clashes in France between police and demonstrators and mass demonstrations in Spain to demand higher wages. Hello again and welcome to the program. First off in our news, Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune addressed the nation in a message on the occasion of International Labour Day, May Day, praising the gains made in the professional field of the new Algeria and stressing the state's determination to preserve and protect the dignity of the citizens. Zahra Farjani with the details.
On the occasion of International Labour Day, President of the Republic Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune reassured the Algerian people in a message that the commitments of the new Algeria are moving forward, recalling the gains achieved in the field of employment in recent times and reaffirming the determination to preserve the dignity of citizens and improve the conditions of workers.
We are constantly striving to improve the living framework and support the purchasing power, according to what the country's financial balances allow, while ensuring the provision of appropriate and stimulating conditions through promoting social dialogue and framing trade union work in order to preserve workers' rights and reinforce their professional future. The gains achieved in the professional field confirm our determination to preserve the dignity of the citizen, value the effort, and rely on work as an essential value for building a modern and strong economy with the help of Algerian women and men.
In order to ensure sustainable development and enable workers to establish their own projects, the Algerian president referred to the facilities provided by the state in this field.
We created a vacation in order to create an organization that allows employees to complete investment projects without the fear of losing their job positions.
Regarding the Algerian community abroad, President Tebboune said that a new mechanism has been launched that enables them to voluntarily join the national social security system and obtain retirement rights in view of the improvements of the Algerian purchasing power.
Since 2020, we have included improving the conditions of workers at the core of our priorities, according to gradual procedures, by raising the value of the minimum guaranteed national wage, cancelling the tax on those with limited income, raising wages, granting retirement pensions, and we were keen on the professional integration of contract holders into permanent work positions and converting the contracts of the Social Inclusion Activities Agency into non-contracts for a limited period, which allowed the employment of more than 500,000 workers in permanent job positions.
The Algerian head of state's assurances in the professional field come as the world is witnessing a number of transformations that have directly affected populations around the world, making it difficult to preserve and protect employers' rights and dignity.
Moving on Monday, the chairman of the Saudi Shura Council, Abdullah bin Mohammed bin Ibrahim al-Sheikh, arrived in Algeria for a 5-day visit. He was received at Algiers International Airport by the Speaker of the Algerian National Assembly or the Upper House of Parliament. Salah Goujil, the head of the Saudi Shura Council, confirmed in a statement that this visit enriches the distinguished relations between the two countries since it came within the natural context of bilateral relations.
هي تكرس العلاقة المتميزة.
The distinguished relationship between the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Algeria enshrines the fraternal relationship between the custodian of the two holy mosques, His Highness the Crown Prince and His Excellency the Algerian President. It comes within the natural context that will be stronger and more relevant, and this is what we hope to be achieved in this visit, through the issues that will be raised and through what will be agreed upon.
Regarding the objectives of this visit, the chairman of the Saudi Shura Council affirmed their willingness to coordinate between the Saudi Shura Council and the Algerian National Assembly on various issues of common interest.
وأرجو إن شاء الله أن يتحقق في هذه الزيارة ما نتمناه جميعا.
I hope, God willing, that what we all wish for will be achieved in this visit to strengthen the relationship, first at the level of the two councils and also on aspects related to other councils related to the Shura Council. Also, there will be an opportunity for coordination and cooperation in the upcoming forums and other meetings to achieve integration and communication between colleagues in the two countries. Algeria is a country that everyone who has come to or heard of recognizes its past and history. It became a model for other countries and did not deviate from the true framework and its preservation of the Arabic regions, Islam, and values.
Algerian Army Chief of Staff Major General Saeed Chingri has supervised the implementation of a night tactical exercise with live ammunition in the 5th Field of Shooting and Maneuvers in the 5th Military Region. According to a statement by the Algerian Ministry of Defense, the exercise was carried out by units of the 7th Armored Brigade, supported by units of the ground forces, air forces, and technical support units. The exercise, according to the same source, confirms the great ability of the participating units in the successful implementation of the tasks assigned to them and the good control of the crews in various weapons and modern high-tech equipment. The candidate for the presidency of the Spanish government, Yolanda Díaz, renewed her commitment to support the Sahrawi people's struggle for self-determination and independence. In the midst of the Spanish political campaign, in turn, the representative of the Polisario Front in Spain, Abdullah Arabi, received the Spanish officials' confirmation of her secure commitment to supporting the Sahrawi people during a forum of the Spanish Communist Party that was held in Madrid. On the other hand, the Sahrawi official took advantage of the party's invitation to thank Díaz for the clarity and harmony in the party's engagement with international politics, especially with North Africa and Western Sahara. The Sahrawi Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mohammad Sedati, welcomed the position of the BRICS group, which called for a political settlement that would guarantee the right of the Sahrawi people to self-determination. For its part, the Sahrawi news agency quoted that the Polisario Front and the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic consider the position of the BRICS group as a clear message to the UN Security Council and the United Nations in general to remind them of the need to assume their responsibilities in respecting the inalienable right of the Sahrawi people. On the occasion of the International Labour Day, several Moroccan cities witnessed on Monday mass rallies led by the Moroccan Social Front, denouncing the deterioration of living conditions and political repression and the restriction of trade union freedoms. The demonstrators raised slogans calling for reversal of the massive increases in the prices of basic foodstuffs and fuel and accusing the government of failing to respond to people's demands.
This is an appeal from the Democratic Confederation of Labor to the current government to tell it that we've had enough and this government is fully responsible for what will happen in the future. We hope it will stop ignoring the people's demands and address the problems before it's too late.
Sudan's conflict continues for the 16th day as the warring parties insist on their aim of reaching power in the country. Warnings from numerous humanitarian organizations have been announced as refugee number rises day after day regarding the dangerous conditions that dominate the scene in many Sudanese cities. Usama Yadi with more details.
Turmoil in the Sudanese capital Khartoum and surrounding cities continue to devastate the humanitarian situation in the country, as thick plumes of smoke are still seen dominating the skyline. Fires and clashes can be heard from different spots of the country, while confrontations intensify between the rapid support forces and the Sudanese army.
As you know, today is the 16th day of the war. There is a big problem with safety. We hear the sounds of artillery from this side. It can fall in the street in front or the one behind.
UN reports have shown that some 70,000 people have already fled to Sudan's 7 neighboring countries, which include South Sudan, Chad, and Egypt. UN officials have estimated that the number of refugees is expected to rise, underlining that over 800,000 people may flee the country after the enormous crises have tightened the means of life in Sudan.
In consultation with all concerned governments and partners, we've arrived at a planning figure of 815,000 people that may flee into the 7 neighboring countries.
Shops and banks have been shuttered at a time when the population has severe need for services, especially that shortages of food and medicines and cuts of water are making it more difficult for the people who did not succeed to flee the fighting.
All shops are closed, and the ones which are open sell products at expensive prices. We hardly eat what is enough for us.
Away from the front line and in Sudan's neighboring countries, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees is scaling up efforts to assist people fleeing from Sudan. Here in Chad, emergency teams have been mobilized along the eastern border with Sudan to guarantee humanitarian and urgent aid for the fleeing citizens, providing food and medicine in order to ease stress and give the least help for the people.
If we fail to act now, it will be too late. The rainy season is coming in few weeks, and if we don't provide any assistance to the people, the road will be blocked and all the refugees here will be stuck.
Despite the fact that the UN has announced a new consensus for talks and ceasefire concerning the situation in Sudan, but no real step has been taken to reach a resolution for the conflict that has shaken the country.
The Independent National Commission for Elections in Mauritania has begun to form its regional teams and its affiliated branches on the guide to the upcoming electoral processes. The Independent National Elections Commission's media official, Mohammed Taqiyullah Al-Adham, stated that the workshop comes as part of the committee's efforts to provide mechanisms that guarantee the success of the electoral process and its endeavor to form crews around the electoral operations guide for the upcoming legislative, regional, and municipal entitlements. The UN envoy to Libya, Abdullah Bathili, discussed with Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan the latest political developments in Libya. On his Twitter account, Bathili announced his meeting with Prince Faisal bin Farhan in Riyadh, where they reviewed the latest political and security developments in Libya and the efforts of the United Nations. Bathili added that Prince Faisal bin Farhan assured him of the support of Saudi Arabia to Libya in order to reach an intra-Libyan solution, expressing the kingdom's readiness to work with the UN mission to restore peace and stability in the country. Ukrainian forces confirmed on Monday that they had made progress in the city of Bakhmut and were able to force the Russian forces to retreat. For its part, Russian Wagner Group confirmed that they still control the city and that Russia is advancing every day. Moving on, Iran's foreign ministry spokesman Nasser Kanani on Monday thanked Saudi Arabia for helping to evacuate 65 of their citizens from Sudan, revealing the growing rapprochement between Riyadh and Tehran. Speaking at the weekly briefing, Kanani stated that delegations are in the process of opening embassies and consular agencies in both countries. Saudi Arabia and Iran, once regional rivals, agreed last month to restore diplomatic relations under a deal brokered by China after years of mistrust.
در مرحله آغازین
We're in the process of opening our embassies and consular agencies in both countries. We're currently finalizing the executive formalities in due course.
In the Middle East still, Zionist occupation forces stormed Akbar Jabra refugee camp in Jericho, resulting in the death of a 17-year-old teenager named Jibril Kamal, while 6 others were injured, 3 of whom are in critical condition. Meanwhile, more than 17 Palestinians were detained across the West Bank. Islam Sid reports.
Zionist violence results in another funeral in the West Bank. A teenager body was carried by dozens of Palestinians as they marched through the city of Jericho. The 17-year-old martyr Jibril Kamal was shot dead by Zionist forces during a military incursion in the Aqaba Jab refugee camp on Monday morning, where at least 3 people were arrested. According to the Palestinian Health Ministry, the young Palestinian was killed after being shot in the head, while 6 other people were injured, including 3 in serious condition.
The situation is very difficult. It exists in every city, in every refugee camp, and it's the price we pay for resisting the occupation.
Following this heinous crime, the Palestinian Foreign Ministry issued a statement condemning the barbaric Zionist raid into the refugee camp. The ministry stressed that it continues to follow up on the crimes and violations of the Zionist occupation and settlers at international courts.
We condemn the continued Israeli military siege on this city for the past 10 days. It is the most heinous form of collective punishment against the defenseless Palestinian civilians. We confirm that the crimes and violations of the Israeli occupation and settlers are a translation of the military and political instructions of the occupation state, which grants soldiers the green light to use live ammunition against Palestinians with the aim to kill.
The Jericho raid came amid operations across the West Bank on Monday that ended in at least 17 arrests. Zionist forces continue to erect checkpoints at all entrances of the city and its camps, where they force Palestinian passengers to wait in long queues for hours. The intensity of tension throughout the West Bank has been increasing for months amid repeated Zionist raids on Palestinian towns. According to reports, the death toll of Palestinians killed by the occupation and settlers' assaults reached 106, including a woman and 19 teenagers.
3 crew members of a Gabon-registered tanker were missing after the vessel caught fire on Monday off Malaysia's southern coast. Malaysian maritime authorities stated that the tanker was on its way from China to Singapore with 28 crew members on board, adding that 23 were rescued by the Malaysia Maritime Enforcement Agency and by nearby vessels. Santiago Peña, Paraguay's ruling candidate, scored a big win in the country's presidential election on Sunday, tightening the conservative Colorado Party's political grip in the country. Peña had 42.7% of the vote, with over 99% of ballots counted, a more than 15-point lead over central-left rival Efrain Alegre. The election result leaves Peña facing a challenge to rev up Paraguay's farm-driven economy, shrink a major fiscal deficit. It also underscores the dominance of the Colorado Party, which has ruled for all but 5 of the last 75 years and has a fierce campaign machine, despite rising discontent from some voters over the slowing economy and corruption allegations.
Today we are celebrating the victory of a population who, through their votes, chose the road of social peace, dialogue, fraternity, and national reconciliation. A population that sent a clear message that problems, hate, and resentment are not the way. We are sons and daughters of one mother, Paraguay. That homeland claims the best of every one of us. And in that great national enterprise, we are all morally obliged to carry out roles wherever we are.
To some economy-related news now, on Monday, members of the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and some non-OPEC producers began voluntary cuts in oil supply. And according to countries concerned, the production cut will continue until 2024 in order to stabilize the international crude oil market. Salman Sim.
the voluntary drop of oil production by more than 1,650,000 barrels per day was a decision taken last month by the OPEC Plus alliance, as according to them, cuts are a precautionary measure aimed at supporting the stability of oil market amidst widespread criticism led by the International Energy Agency. The new cuts come just a month after 6 Arab members of the OPEC Plus bloc of oil-producing nations voluntarily, including Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Iraq, Kuwait, Oman and Algeria, announced a voluntary reduction by about 1.71 million BPD starting on May 1st until the end of 2023. For his part, OPEC chief Haytham al-Ghais said OPEC and its oil-producing allies have been taking proactive and preemptive actions to stabilize the market based on detailed research and analysis, adding that the influential group of 23 oil-exporting nations was not targeting oil prices, but instead focusing on market fundamentals.
OPEC and the Alliance of Independent Producers do not target oil prices at all, but rather focus on the fundamentals of the markets, enabling investments in the sector that the world needs the most.
OPEC Secretary General Haytham al-Ghais also added that finger-pointing and mispresenting the actions of OPEC and OPEC Plus was counterproductive.
The International Energy Agency should know very well that there are many factors affecting all markets. Blaming oil prices on high inflation is wrong and technically incorrect, and accusing the OPEC Plus alliance would be counterproductive.
And according to the new plans, Iraq will voluntarily cut oil production by 211,000 BPD from May until the end of this year, and the United Arab Emirates 144,000, Kuwait 128,000, Kazakhstan 78,000, Algeria 48,000, and finally Russia has extended its voluntary oil production cut by 500,000 barrels per day until the end of 2023, which was previously due by the end of June.
Egypt joined a group of Arab countries to study reducing dependence on the dollar in its international trade dealings, especially importing food commodities and raw material from China, India and Russia. Egypt is facing a foreign currency shortage crisis the worst in years, which intensified at the beginning of last year with the U.S. Federal Reserve raising interest rates and the outbreak of the Russian-Ukrainian war, which led to the exit of more than $22 billion.
We are seriously considering trying to import from countries using their local currencies and the Egyptian pound, and we have crossed a large part of this long track with India, Russia and China.
White House Press Secretary Catherine Jean-Pierre on Monday reassured Americans on the health of the banking system and decisive actions taken by U.S. regulators to seize First Republic Bank and facilitate its takeover by J.P. Morgan Chase & Co. will protect depositors and ensure the banking system stays stable. According to the White House press secretary, the actions taken by U.S. regulators would also ensure that First Republic, which she said was severely mismanaged, would be held accountable. Hundreds of protests took place worldwide on May 1st as people came together to mark International Workers' Day. From France to the Philippines, citizens voiced their concern about various issues, ranging from labor rights to economic policies. May Day has always been a platform for citizens to make their voices heard, and this year was no exception. Sofian Kentori.
On May Day, hundreds of protests erupted across many cities worldwide, each with their unique reasons for dissent. In France, citizens used the opportunity to voice their opposition to the pension reform law introduced by President Macron. These protests have been ongoing for 12 days, and recently they have been increasingly violent, causing concern among law enforcement officials. Moving northeast of Europe, thousands of people also gathered in Berlin to protest against various issues and called to find solutions for workers as soon as possible.
What's next? As long as the pension reforms are not withdrawn, we will continue to protest. All that we want is for him to give up and withdraw his reforms.
In Latin America, the case was different. Brazilian President Lula Inácio da Silva used May Day to promise an increase in the minimum wage and to raise the income tax exemption for lower income earners, which could help reduce the burden on those who are financially disadvantaged.
We will bring it once again a real increase in the minimum wage above inflation. From here on, workers will receive a minimum wage increase above inflation with a GDP increase, just as we had done when I was president until 2010, when the minimum wage increased 74%. This is something that is very important, because when the minimum wage increases, it is not just the worker who wins.
Calls for better wages and treatment for laborers were raised in the Philippines. Hundreds of activists marched in Manila to mark the International Workers' Day with a primary focus on the government's treatment of workers.
It's very bleak, as many have noted. We are at an unprecedented devaluation of the real value of wages. There hasn't been any significant wage increase, much less wage increase to approximate living wage.
Turkey also celebrated May Day, with the Istanbul Governor's Office permitting celebration to be held in a specific district, while deeming all other gatherings unauthorized and illegal. Overall, May Day has been a platform for citizens to come together to demand better treatment and policies from their governments. These protests serve as a reminder that the fight for better living conditions and wages is ongoing and needs to be addressed by the authorities.
The end of our program. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.